This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we have one of the good folks in Alabama politics, one of my favorite people on the political scene in Alabama, Miss Twinkle Cavanaugh, Miss Twinkle Andrews Cavanaugh. She and I have been longtime friends. I'm not saying she's my age. We have been friends a long time. Twinkle, good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's always such a pleasure to join you, and lots of fun to read your column every week.
Thank you. We have a good time reminiscing about history. And Twinkle, you're president of the Public Service Commission. And by the way, y'all, she's running for re-election this time in the March 3rd primary. Twinkle is a Republican. She's been a lifetime Republican. She was head of the Republican Party for a long time and worked in Congress as a young girl or right out of college, worked for Congressman Sonny Callahan from Mobile, and then got very active in politics. She was a school teacher originally, and then she went to Washington and got the political bug, and then head of the Republican Party, and been on the Public Service Commission now several terms, and a state leader and a real leader in the Republican Party, and I might add a very devoted, dedicated wife and mother. She loves her husband and daughter better than anybody I've seen in my life. But Twinkle, we were talking on the show, you know, Alabama, you get around the state. You do a good job of visiting every county. You really know Alabama.
It's my favorite part of my job. You know, just yesterday I was what I call throughout the wiregrass. I was in Enterprise and Elba, and then went down and had a lunch in Geneva, spent a little time in Troy, which is what I consider sort of my hometown, is the Pike County area.
Where'd you stop in Troy?
Stopped in Troy at the courthouse and went through the courthouse and just said hello to everyone. You know, if you don't leave Montgomery, you don't really know what's going on. But I'll tell you where I ended up. I ended up in a little area near Elba. I believe the address might be Elba, I don't know, but it's right there on the Geneva Coffee County line at a little church, the Ima Baptist Church.
I've heard of it.
Anyway.
I've never been there, but I've heard of it.
They had a revival last night, and my favorite gospel singer was singing, and Michael Combs, he's from North Carolina, and so it'd been on my calendar for 8 months. And
you made it to
I made it to the Ima Baptist Church.
And it's on the Coffee Geneva County line.
It is, in Kinston, Alabama. And so that's where I ended up. But you know, when you get out and you leave Montgomery and you travel, you find out what people are really concerned about. And right now, they're very concerned about what's happening in Washington, how much our country's changing, and they really want someone that'll just be their voice and fight for them for these conservative issues. But my very favorite thing is to get out and travel around. Last week I was in Tallahassee, Alabama, and that was a lot of fun, and just being there, meeting with the mayor, seeing what they're doing in downtown Tallahassee. But it's amazing. We have such great people in the state. They're a lot of fun, and it's amazing how innovative they are, doing things differently. And a lot of these old downtown areas are getting revitalized. In fact, the mayor's wife in Tallahassee is opening up a dog grooming shop right in downtown, and I got to tour that. So that's the great part of this job, is to, you know, see what's going on and see what's really affecting people. Yesterday I met with a group of farmers, and
in Pike or Coffee?
Actually, I was in Coffee County meeting with some farmers, and they met at the Cotton Gin, and a real cotton gin. I think nowadays people call things a coffee gin, but a real, Coffee County cotton gin, a real cotton gin. And they were talking about the different prices of electricity and what could be done about using peak times and non-peak times and irrigation. But those are the kind of things I love, to get out, hear what people are really experiencing, and see if I can do anything to remedy it or put people in contact with the right folks. But I enjoy it.
Twinkle, you know, you and being in Coffee County, you think about Coffee County, Enterprise, Elba, and with the boll weevil monument being all peanuts in the wiregrass. But I had John McMillan on the show several times. He was Commissioner of Agriculture. And he says cotton really has made a real big comeback all over the state,
right.
and the wiregrass too. So you're talking about something, they grow a lot of cotton in Coffee County.
Lots of cotton. We passed lots of cotton fields yesterday, and the cotton's still what they call short. It wasn't quite as tall yet. It's not ready to pick or anything. That'll be in the fall, but beautiful, beautiful cotton crops all across that area.
You said you had a picture made with the county commissioner, the Jim, Big Jim, and
Big Jim.
And then his lawyer was 6 feet tall yesterday too. Did you see?
That's right. I laughed and I said, "Boy, I was definitely the short one in that photograph." But they have some fantastic folks in Coffee County working hard. He's on the commission there, and they were talking about all the road improvements that are going on in that region. I think they said they'd have 49 miles of new roads in that county. So it's amazing to hear what all is going on, throughout our state, and the improvements being made.
Well, coffee is growing a lot. Enterprise is growing a lot.
Yes, it is.
You know, Big Jim. When you said Big Jim, you were telling me the first time. I thought Big Jim Folsom was from Coffee County. He was from Elba.
That's right. A lot of times we think he's from Coleman, but he was from South. Well, the reason I know Big Jim that was on the commission, he was a football player at Auburn when I was there at Auburn. So when I saw him, I knew it had to be the same one.
they renovated old Big Jim Folsom's original house down there around Elba. It's coming towards Pike County. Jimmy Holly was telling me more about it recently, but they renovated his house. He won that 1946 governor's race with what's called friends and neighbors politics. You know, if you're from a certain area, you'll get those votes.
That's right.
You know, like I believe Bentley won the 2010 governor's race because he got so many votes in Tuscaloosa, if you look at the results. But Big Jim was born in Elba in Coffee County in the Wiregrass, but then moved to Coleman as a grown man. And the reason who brought him in North Alabama, he had a relative, an uncle named Ross Clark, who was very successful in the insurance business, and brought Big Jim to North Alabama to sell insurance. And then the first thing he built was that circle around
Dothan, the Ross Clark Circle.
That's what it's named for.
Wow.
For his uncle, Ross Clark. He named that Ross Clark Circle in Dothan around him.
Well, he also campaigned what I call with the folks.
He
went to people. He didn't stay in Montgomery. He went out and he had the strawberry pickers in the back of a flatbed truck. And, we've got too many folks that want to just run a TV ad, when I believe you've got to get out and go to all 67 counties and see what people are really saying, what's on their mind, and then listening, not just talking, but listening, and coming back and getting something done. You
know, we were talking about prior to the show about, I told you I had done not an extensive or scientific study, but there have been as many public service commission people elected to governor as it has lieutenant governor, but one of them was from on the PSC, Big Jim's son, Little Jim, who didn't have the dynamic personality or gregariousness that Big Jim had and uninhibitedness. He was more laid back, but he served a long time on the PSC. Little Jim didn't he?
He did, and also, let's see, the Gordon Persons was also on the Public Service Commission and wound up serving as governor.
You know, he flew a helicopter when he ran for governor in 1950.
Did he really?
He won the 50 governor's race flying a helicopter. Was a brand new invention, and he'd fly into courthouse squares with his helicopter, which would draw a crowd. That's how they would campaign back then. And Big Jim did it with a country band called the Strawberry Pickers in '54. Wallace brought in Minnie Pearl.
You know, one of the things that when I speak, I talk about Big Jim Folsom. I've heard a song that was actually sung by a gentleman out of Coleman, Alabama, and his son played it for me. And it talks about Big Jim looked out the window and he said, "My goodness, boys, we got lots of cars out there and lots of gravel. We need to get some roads going." And so the song's really cute, talking about we need roads. And that's when he paved all the farm to market roads in front of my grandparents. They both had dirt roads in front of their homes until
the ones
Big
from Pike
Jim
County
came along and paved the roads, and that was a big deal. But nowadays, the infrastructure that people are looking for is broadband. And that's something we've been real involved with at the Public Service Commission.
Tell us about that.
And that is that, you know, it's interesting for folks that don't know, they're probably a little bit like me. I thought that when they talked about laying the pipes to put throughout the state so that they could have better communication. As a power company, Alabama Power Company came to us and said, and I said, I'd like to see these pipes that you all are laying in the ground. And I guess my feeling was I needed to go out and see them. Well, they brought something about this big into my office. They brought a strip about this long and about this big around, and said, this is what we're laying. I thought, my goodness, we've come a long way. But in laying that, it has a lot of different cords in it, and you can take all of that wire, each wire that is in it, you can put 25, 30 wires, and they may only need 5 or 6 wires, and then the other wires can be used for an internet system, as I call it. It's just like an interstate system. And you can take that interstate system and then bring the broadband and high-speed internet into all the different areas around our state. But the cost is in getting it in the ground, laying that in the ground. That's where your expense comes in. So once you are going to take on that expense, you might as well put extra wires in it. And there's no cost there. That's just pennies. And so it's been really exciting to see the innovation. But when I heard that song, somebody played it for me in Coleman, talking about Big Jim looking out the window and seeing all the cars and gravel, and he said, boys, we got to have some blacktop. And I thought we need to do the same thing when it comes to high-speed internet, broadband throughout our state. We've got to make sure that we're poised for the future, whether it's medicine, school for our children and education, or economic development. We've got to make sure that we have that infrastructure that people need in our state to get ahead, to be able to provide for their families and have the correct medicine, and especially in our rural areas. It's exciting right now.
Twinkle, I'm so appreciative of your knowing and working the state like you do and getting out and visit. Most people just would sit in the ivory tower and enjoy their jobs, but you get out and campaign as though it's, you like the former politicians we had, the political figures we had that like to get out and visit with people.
Steve, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed. A lot of times along the way, folks said, oh, she'll never be able to do that. She can't do that. And I always tell my daughter, you can do anything. You dream the dream, and then you go work it and make it happen. And I believe we can make it happen for all the citizens in our state. But I believe it's going to take people that get out and talk to folks all over. You got to go to Gunnersville. You've got to go up to Florence. You've got to go over to Colbert County and over to Auburn and Opelika and down in the Wiregrass. You've got to get there and talk to them to know what's happening and be able to fix the problems and grow our state economically the way we need to. But never forget, I'm also big on we got to keep our values here in Alabama. They're quickly being eroded on the national level. And, this past year I served on the Amendment 2 as the co-chair for that. And that was it was a very pro-life amendment, and it was to keep our constitution here in Alabama a pro-life constitution. And we don't need to be ashamed of our Alabama values. We need to stand strong with our Alabama values and be a beacon for the rest of the country. So we've got to be strong on economic development, but we've got to be even stronger when it comes to sticking to our guns, our conservative causes, and letting folks know that we're proud to be Alabamians and we're proud to be conservative, and we're proud of the values that we hold here.
Well, I appreciate it. And too, Twinkle, you walk the walk. You're known here in Montgomery and throughout the state, for that matter, as a quality, high standard, personal person too. And your personal life is above reproach. Like you put your family first, and people know that. You put your church and your husband and daughter first in your life. It's not your political career. You and Ann Wilkes have had a special, close relationship. Your only daughter. How old is Ann Wilkes now?
She's in 7th grade.
Is that 12 years
and
old?
It is. And she is a lot of fun.
Time passes by.
Growing up so quickly. And you're right. That is, she is my blessing. She's my miracle and my blessing. And it's a lot of fun seeing all of her friends as they grow up and mature, and really turn into precious young ladies and, as I say, great citizens for the state of Alabama.
Speaking of that, when you come home sometimes from a long trip visiting the Wiregrass or Sand Mountain or coming home from somewhere, does she ever ask about, do you ever share with her your experiences, like I had met the most interesting person today?
Absolutely.
Does she ask about
all the
it?
time? You know, she really didn't have much interest in what I do. It was just a job, and she was busy growing up. But recently, she's really enjoyed hearing the stories. And last night, in fact, I got home, like I said, from the revival, and I thought she'd be in bed sound asleep. It was almost 10:30, and she was in bed, but she woke up when I went in to kiss her, and she said, "Mama, how was Michael Combs last night?" So, you know, my family really takes a big interest in what I do. But one thing I really like to do is I've always said, is to make sure I'm home in the mornings to take my daughter to school every morning. That's a special time for us, and we talk about what's going on in her world, because, you know, children nowadays, Steve, they're facing so much that we didn't face as children. And so we pray on the way to school, and we talk about things that are affecting her and how to handle things, and hopefully it'll make it a little bit easier for her. But you know, I just pray for all the mamas and daddies out there right now, because it's tough.
Well, I know you spend a lot of time with her. I'm glad I wonder if she was interested in some of the stuff you do every day. You know, we talk about, you and I visit often about politics, you know as well as anybody, especially as young as you are, but we're talking about Alabama, when you get out and visit, is really a big front porch. You know, I was talking about Coleman, I was thinking about being in Coleman not long ago, and going to that museum, that Big Jim's, all that stuff in Big Jim. You've seen, I had a book signing in that they had for me in that museum, but you see so many people. Don't you find interesting, you'll be in Muscle Shoals or Coleman and say, well, there can this person in the Wiregrass. Of course, you ran the state party for years, and you know people from that, but isn't that interesting? I'm really still a big front porch, isn't it?
It is a big front porch. And you know, you mentioned in the beginning of the show that I actually was a school teacher and decided to move to Washington and work on Capitol Hill for the Republican National Committee, because I just wanted to make sure that we pushed our conservative values and quit letting the liberals kind of, as I say, encroach on our values. And I realized in Alabama you would come home, and even then we were a two-party state, not as much anymore. But Alabamians haven't changed. What has changed is the liberal Democrat Party. It has gone so far to the left that no one can identify with the Democrat Party anymore. And so now what you see in our state, as you know, is a really big change to the Republican Party. But our state hadn't changed. We're still just great people, a big front porch all across our state. And wherever you are, you know, you meet people or see people that you know. Cute story last night. A lady and gentleman were sitting behind me at church, and like I said, I didn't know anybody at the I Know Baptist Church.
They know who you were then.
And they tapped me on the shoulder and they said, "You met our son in 2008. And may we have a picture with you so we can send it to him?" Well, he's now in Tuscaloosa, but he had been working at a newspaper in that Wiregrass area back in '08 when I was traveling through. So that's what you talk about, a big front porch. People all over the state know and are connected to other people, and if you sit down and talk to them long enough, you'll find somebody they're related to, and heck, if you talk to them long enough, you'll find out you're related to them.
Well, you know, you and I have that Pike County thing where I saw it on a real localized basis when I served for almost 2 decades in the legislature from Pike County, and your grandmama and all your people from that northern part of Pike County, and I got to know your grandmama, and but I would find that extremely true in a small county, that you sure wouldn't say anything bad about somebody because you might be in Spring Hill and they would, you know, and then you go to the northern part of the county and their cousin lives in the other part of the county, so you got to be careful of that in a small county. But the state's almost like there's a big front porch.
It is. You know, I'll never forget it, Steve, and it's still such a memory that I treasure. I opened my grandmother's cedar chest to clean it out when she passed away, and that was 4 years ago. And on the top, taped to the top of the cedar chest, was your name and your number, and it said Representative Steve Flowers when you were her representative. So that's just a memory I treasure. And you had stopped by the house, by her house, and she lived way down a country road.
Oh, yeah.
And you had told her if she ever needed anything to call you, and she did. And that's what real true service is about, is letting folks know they've got a number they can call.
You're sweet to say that. That church up there was very powerful and popular. Your relatives are buried in that cemetery, aren't
That's
they?
right. You know,
is she buried there?
She is. I have all the way to my 4th great grandmother buried in Pike County.
They were hard shell Baptists.
Yeah, that's right.
That Raymond was a hard shell Baptist church.
That's right.
And they loved old Preacher Walker. Did you ever meet him?
Yes, sir. And but now my husband and I got married in Josie, Alabama,
at
the Methodist church.
Okay.
We got married.
You and Jeff got married down there?
We did, and at the Mount Pleasant
How
Methodist.
did you pick that go to there? Because your family went there?
Well, my grandmother and my mother had gotten married in that church, and
I did not know that. So you said since they were married
I wanted
there.
to get married there, right?
Isn't that interesting? And it was in Pike County.
Right. Now we had a December wedding because it would have been mighty hot in June.
Oh yeah. You used to go to family reunions down there too, didn't you?
That's right.
Dinner on the ground.
That's exactly right.
And you'd meet Preacher Walker, he'd be there, wouldn't he?
That's right.
They revered him up there.
And we'd go put flags on all the graves of all the soldiers, and you know.
And you got married at that Methodist church. Your mom and grandma both were married there.
That's right. So right there in Josie, Alabama. Little one-room white little country church, a beautiful church, and recently had a painting done of the church. It's
Tell
beautiful.
our viewers, if you would, about the recent trip up there to Valley Head in DeKalb County, because old Bozo Hammond, you didn't know that I knew him. You told me the story. He was a star football player at Troy University. Even though he'd grown up in Valley Head, he went to Troy State then and was a heck of a football player. And that's when he got his nickname. His name was Kenneth Hammond, but he got the name Bozo for some reason at Troy State. Tell us about viewers.
You talk about a big front porch. My husband and I, my daughter went to camp up in North Alabama, and so anyway, I didn't want to stay in just a chain motel somewhere along the way. I wanted to find a local place, and so we found a little bed and breakfast and made reservations to stay there. And when I got up the next morning, I was, in a huge hurry to go pick my little girl up. I was missing her. And I had a lady that owned the house, and she had just gotten up, and she wanted to talk, and she knew exactly who I was, and that I was on the Public Service Commission. And so anyway, she said, well, my twin brother served on the commission.
She was Bozo's twin.
And she was Bozo's twin sister, and there were just 2 of them that had grown up in the house we were staying in. So she got him on the phone, and I didn't know him. He's just a picture on the wall, in our commission room.
He's still living, though, isn't he?
But he's still living, doing well, and so I talked to him for a little while, and then we took his picture off the wall, made a copy of it, and got some old documents that he had signed, and made copies of them and sent them to him, and he of course sent a little note thanking me. But things like that are neat to just kind of connect the history of our state and all, and be able to actually talk to him. So
he said he was actually president, wasn't he?
I believe he was. I'm not 100% certain, but I think he was.
You're president of the commission.
That's correct.
But Twinkle, back, old Sonny Callahan's not doing well, is he? He's sick, isn't he?
The last time I saw him, he came to a luncheon in Mobile last year, and he looked great, but, he's definitely, he's a little older now, but talk about a giant in the political world for Alabama. He was somebody that just truly loved the Gulf Coast area, and went to Congress to fight for that area.
Talking about a legend down there, was a giant, is still living and practices law, lives half the year in North Carolina, half was Jack Edwards.
That's right.
He served exactly 20 years, and he preceded
That's right. He preceded Sonny Callahan. And, that district hadn't had too many people represent them. They usually stay a good long time. And that's a neat area on the coast. The state docks are doing fantastic. Yeah. And
you travel there
it's
a good
growing.
Bit,
I do. I do.
Twinkle, one of you and I's mutual friends who I revere as much as anybody I would have on 2 hands is Joe Bonner.
He's a good man.
He is one of the best guys. He's one of the treasures in the state of Alabama, and I got a chance to visit with him and Kay Ivey. Of course, as our viewers may not know, Joe Bonner was a congressman from the Mobile area, Mobile and Baltimore area, for about 15 years, and left the Congress, and he is now Governor Ivey's chief of staff.
You know what is, to me, when I think of Joe Bonner, I think of a statesman.
I do too.
But I also think of somebody who has a heart that's just gigantic.
It is.
He takes care of everyone, and someone could, when he was the chief of staff in Washington to a Congressman Callahan, I don't care who you were, if you showed up at his door and were looking for a job, he would do everything he could to help you, or if you needed something. And the stories of people that he's helped are just so numerous, you couldn't even, you know, write a book. It'd be too large. So he's just got such a large heart, and for service and for helping others to find a job. So we've had some giants that have been in.
That first district has had some real giants. Joe Bonner, though, is the best thing Kay Ivey could have done as far as chief of staff.
I think they're doing
He's
a good
not
job.
only a good person, he's a good administrator.
Right.
And they're making economic development a priority too.
Right.
They really are. But
we've got a lot to be proud of in this state. And, you know, another one of your very good friends is Senator Shelby. And he is doing a fantastic job. And
we're fortunate to have him.
We are fortunate. We have had some real big giants in Washington, but I think he definitely covers the largest.
We'll never have a chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee again.
That's right.
Especially somebody who has an eye for the dollar like he does.
Well, you know, it's nice because when it comes to things like improving our state docks, or getting money for our colleges here in the state, or actually all the different aerospace companies and all in Huntsville, he's just done so much, and
he's
it's fantastic. So,
Twinkle, you're doing a lot too, and we're proud of you. But our time's up.
Well,
it goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
You know why we love the state, and we love to talk about it, don't we?
We sure do.
Folks,
our guest tonight has been President of the Public Service Commission, and an outstanding lady in Alabama government, Miss Twinkle Cavanaugh, and she'll be on the ballot this March. So, Twinkle, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
viewers.
viewers.